Okay, and next up, we'll be talking about a perpetually relevant topic in sizing growth opportunities for next-gen local markets, talking about advertising and personalizing those and analytics. Joining us for that, we have Rick Ducey, the Managing Director, and Mark Fratrick, the SVP and Chief Economist, both from BIA. And I will get this started for you.
Thank you for giving us some of your time this afternoon. Mark and I will co-pilot this. We're not engineers. We had to go through a special security protocol to get in the room, and we tried to sign a SMPTE sheet, and they crossed off our names. So but occasionally they let us in. Actually, Peter Wharton and I were going back and forth. Hey, Sid, how you doing? Actually, I presented to this group 20 years ago. Anybody remember that? Most people didn't the next day or even the same day. But every so often we get to come in and talk about some of the things we've been working on. We're more business and strategy people, so we're going to talk about business models and some revenue scenarios. We were talking about use cases, some really good, interesting ideas here, and who knows, right? But we're going to take a shot at showing what it could look like, what the markets might size out to be, and how they might trend as we bring in ATSC 3.0 next-gen capabilities into the marketplace. But I do want to just give an editorial comment here. Congratulations to you all. We're here in DC, the homeland of hyperbole. People say things and there's no accountability. But this group is really accountable. I mean, Marshall McLuhan said the thing of the medium is the message. And so ATSC 3.0, next gen, some of the key benefits to the world are going to be spectrum efficiency, robustness, and one-to-many use cases. So this group walks the walk. We have spectrum efficiency. We put 120 people into a room built for 80. Robustness. This group started at 8 o'clock, and the morning break was 11:30, 45 minutes before the lunch break. That's robustness. And speaking of lunch, one-to-many. I think we all know the benefits of one-to-many versus the one-to-one line for the lunch. Why wouldn't you have one-to-many? Many people go at once? No, it doesn't work. Anyway, so we use this kind of brilliant insight to bring to our business analytics and strategy development. So we're going to talk about advanced advertising. We'll give a definition of what we mean by that and talk about some of the use cases for this connected car, so wireless broadband data and hybrid networks, things I've already talked about, but our goal is to talk about it from a slightly different perspective. And we'll put some dollar numbers on this and see if you have some thoughts, see if you agree, disagree. This is all scenario-based. We took our best shot, make some assumptions. We do forecasting for a living. We do 2 updates a year, which means one we just released will be wrong in 6 months, and then the one in 6 months will be correct until the next 6 months. We keep trying. So Mark Fratrick, my colleague, is our Senior Vice President, economist at BIA. And if you like the numbers, you can talk to Mark. If you don't like the numbers, you can also talk to Mark.
Rick had never been this funny ever before. I don't know what is going on here. It's either an easy crowd or they put something in the food. Nevertheless, I'm also pleased to be here. I am not an engineer, but I'm an economist, so it starts with an E, so I'm more than halfway there. So as Rick said, we spent some time over the last few weeks trying to put together some numbers, some estimates of that. I know many of you are straining to see that. Obviously, we can provide you with the deck as well. One of the great things about turning into a new year, especially this year, we moved into a new decade. So we can project out over the decade. So that's exactly what we did. So this is the roaring 20s for NextGen TV. And this sort of provided a time horizon for that projection. So as you see here, there are various parts of the revenue streams that go to local television stations, starting with TV over the air, TV online, OTT, which we actually just started making estimates of in terms of locally targeted OTT, retransmission, and then we added advanced TV and non-broadcasting, and that's what ATSC 3.0, or I'm supposed to call it Next Gen, right? Next Gen. is providing. And what we decided after thinking about the estimates of all the existing TV revenue streams is that it continues to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of around 3.5%. We still believe local television is very important in local advertising mixes, and thus it's going to be relevant even to the year 2030, especially in even number years. And many of you who are working in commercial television stations in battleground states, boy, this is a good year for advertising. With advanced TV, with the targeting capability of advertising, as well as possibly the increased viewership, we see that compounded annual growth rate will increase to 5.5%. And then if you add in the non-broadcasting applications, connected cards, IoT, software updates, etc., we expect it to actually go up to an 8% compounded annual growth rate. The actual dollars don't matter, it's the direction where I think NextGen television can bring to local television broadcasting. And we're somewhat bullish on it. It's helpful to project out over 10 years because there's a lot of years there to reach there. And we'll go into some of the issues that relate to some of the questions that come up with our projections.
So thinking about what, we've been talking about this already in this session and many similar such sessions, and you can chunk this up a lot of different ways. You talk about the architecture of NextGen TV and 5G and internet, IP, and so on. But from a business strategy perspective, there's a few moving parts and pieces that have particular significance because a lot of business and economic activity gets organized around those. So platforms, there's a lot of research and real-world experience about platforms. Platforms bridge together two different parts of a marketplace, as we know. So eBay, sellers, buyers kind of thing. So the two-sided market aggregators create a lot of value in a marketplace by bridging together demand and supply side. So does NextGen TV have a role in platform economics? Second thing, devices. Over-the-air devices, set-top boxes, internet devices, mobile devices. These devices have their own business model. So and it's not just selling them, they create value. So that's a key part of the marketplace to think about. And these are kind of formative influences as we think about the scenarios we're going to be showing in a moment and start to put dollars and cents against those. Like Mark said, the absolute dollars we're forecasting out in these scenarios will be wrong. I can guarantee that. But the relative magnitude and the direction, I think we'll be better with. And we'll keep getting better information about that. Content, I'll say some things that may be a little bit heretical about content. But network stations, the various flixes these days, a new category that I love the name of it. And distribution, MVPDs, cable, internet, 5G, and then NextGen. Wow, we have a new actor in this play of what's going on in the video ecosystem, NextGen. So we'll talk specifically about that in terms of the context of these other parts of the marketplace. So we work a lot with broadcasters and partners in the broadcast ecosystem. We work a lot with advertisers and agencies and everybody that kind of facilitates that marketplace, data providers, audience measurement companies, and so on. These days, you can't just say audience data or marketing data. It's a cloud. Everything's a cloud. So we have data about consumers, and that's the marketing cloud. So that's all part of this mix too. Data science and artificial intelligence, trying to figure this all out. So I spent some time in a couple of projects and just sort of individually talking to some people on the buy side of this two-sided marketplace. The advertisers are buying time. They generate most of the revenue for broadcasters. And said, so what do you think about ATSC 3.0 NextGen TV? And typically they're all very excited. It's going to be addressable. It's going to be one-to-one. It's going to be one-to-many. It's going to be high quality. And then I say, so when do you think it's going to come to the marketplace? So I've literally had some major holding company ad agencies come to me asking what we think about 2020 and how fast I can get going this year with advanced TV and advanced advertising. And our definition of advanced advertising is actually highly technical. So I'll say it slowly. Anything more than gender and age. when you're buying TV. That's sort of the way the marketplace thinks of advanced TV as. So there's a whole bunch of questions up here. And what expectations should we have? That's one of the questions. The ad side, the agency and advertisers don't really have grounded understandings of what NextGen or ATSC 3.0. So it's still a responsibility and an opportunity on the part of the industry to educate the buy side, since it's so critical to many of our revenue models. And I'll just pick a couple of these. On the top of the second column on the right, with 5G, why do we need NextGen TV? So we've got at last year's CES, the CEO of AT&T, who has since departed for perhaps unrelated reasons, we'll see, invented 5G and said, we have it out now. It's been out for years on AT&T's network. We just put a little E next to 5G, and that means we have 5G at some point, and it's on your phone now. So it's like totally made up. And then other actual deployments, market by market. You can get 5G in some cases, very high speeds, but if you take a couple of steps, all of a sudden those high speeds disappear. Very narrow service areas. I don't know if you want to pick a couple.
One of the important questions there is that fourth one down, and it's not an eye exam for everybody out there. What market penetration level must NextGen reach before it becomes a viable advertising platform? As Rick said, we have, all the great things that the various television groups that are probably represented here are doing and deploying it. Even if you turn it on, it's still going to take a while for consumers to buy the sets, and thus how many consumers have to be available in the Roanoke market before it becomes a viable platform for ad agencies to buy. And so I think that's a very important aspect of the future of NextGen television is the quickness of the consumer adoption, and when does it reach that magical point where it does lead to advertising revenues.
Go ahead, sorry. Just I have a comment to that point. So speaking to somebody from one of the major holding companies who was excited about buying ATSC 3.0 advertising in 2020, so I asked her, I said, okay, well, it's not going to be available in 2020, maybe a while longer. And then I said, by the way, on this point, what market penetration do you need to get to before it's an interesting advertising platform for you? And her mind is she's a TV buyer and has been a TV buyer her whole career. And so it's just like thinking ubiquity. This is the biggest local ad platform in the marketplace. So like nobody ever asked her what penetration you need to have for TV before. So she was like kind of thrown a bit, said, I don't know, we never asked that internally. So she said 50%. And I said, oh, okay, that's an interesting number. She says, we'll need to get to at least 50% if we're going to do any kind of addressability. If you get into this marketing cloud stuff, you've got lists of customers, you've got lists of audiences, and various other lists. You want to merge those. So if you start with a list of 10 million people, by the time you do all the matching, you may be down to 1 million or less people. So if you want to reach those in a marketplace, you have to have at least 50% penetration to be interesting to advertisers. So that was the kind of basic math she was familiar with when looking about MVPD kind of networks. But for broadcast, there's a couple things that she hadn't thought about. So that's more education is needed on the business side of the marketplace before we start disappointing some of our key current customers with ATSC 1.0 as they hear the exciting things that are coming, but they don't understand they're still coming, they're not here.
Another thing that people ask us is, okay, what is the business model for NextGen television? What is the one non-broadcast app that's going to be relevant and successful? And my answer is that there isn't one. There's many, and depending upon the strategic direction that the station take and what your competitive television stations take in your market will determine whether or not you're doing software updates or you're focusing on emergency alerts, as John mentioned earlier, or driverless cars and updating maps. So that is still being developed, I know, by many in this room and people on the business side of the company, and that's going to evolve. And so while we were heroic, I guess, in estimating where we see that non-broadcasting application revenues, and we're quite bullish about it, it's still being developed, and thankfully, given that we can project 10 years now in a new decade, it made it a little easier. So.
So we've got a bunch of questions there we've been collecting. We have some thoughts and recommendations and opinions about some of these, and some of them we don't have a clue, but we're working on trying to come up with some ideas on. So we're not going to go through all these now. We just thought we'd cherry pick a couple to keep things interesting as we move along.
Let me turn a little bit into what BAA does in terms of our advertising forecast, because this is very relevant. While we're bullish, when we're bullish about local television station advertising capabilities with NextGen Television, one has to look at the competition that local television stations face in the advertising marketplace, the size, the opportunities. BIA does estimate 16 different advertising platforms, going from cable and direct mail to TV to mobile, etc. And this is what we see over the next 5 years in terms of the dollar amount. And a quick definition: this is all advertising targeted to local markets. So there's a national, regional, and local advertisers spending dollars in each of the 210 television markets, trying to reach the consumer through the various advertising platforms. The happy thing about this is that it's going up overall across the 16 advertising platforms, though it is very differently when you separate those advertising platforms into what here is traditional media and digital media. And digital media is all the online, mobile, either sold by traditional media as well as pure play online companies. The traditional media includes TV, radio, over-the-air advertising revenues, including newspapers and direct mail and other traditional media. And as you can see, while the overall total media goes up nearly 4% on an annual basis, there's a vast difference between digital media and traditional media insofar as their compounded annual growth rate. So where you have a little slightly over half now going to traditional media, $90 billion, the other $71 billion is going to the online digital, and that obviously has been increasing. In 2020, I hear there's an election going on this year. Television is still very important. This is the local television stations, $18.5 billion, the fourth ranked one. When people see this or other charts we have, when you see direct mail, they said, nah, that can't be true. I take that direct mail, I don't even make it into the house, I throw it in the trash can on the way out. I see some nodding heads, but you do that every damn day. And that includes all the catalog and the direct solicitations. I'm going to try to joke with this crowd. So,
on a roll.
If you do not get at least 4 or 5 direct solicitations in terms of transferring your credit balances, that must mean you have a really bad credit score. Not bad. So this is the top 5. By 2024, another election year, I will point out, and who knows what's going to be running then, over half will be in digital in advertising. We're going into a little more detail. Here are the advertising spending pie charts. This is all the mobile advertising, and in 2020, that's around $30 billion, $32 billion. By 2024, it'll be $50 billion. And one of the things that maybe many of you will understand this, but the pink and the red, and then it becomes orange for some reason, that's the native social, and that's what's really driving a large, in addition to the search, that's what's driving a lot of mobile advertising nowadays. People checking their Facebook posts every 20 minutes, and all of the advertising associated with Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, who obviously is the 800-pound gorilla in that there, and that's a significant dollar portion of that.
Just in context, so we deal a lot with the advertising side and where that spend is going. The purple slice, which happily remains purple in both pies, that's mobile video. So when we call here traditional video, which means inline video, basically, pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll, not display video. So we think about NextGen TV as a mobile-first medium, and video from the ad side of things. This is what Madison Avenue and the major holding companies and local and regional advertisers are thinking about spending. When they think mobile, they want search, they want social. That's where the spend's going big time. And a little bit of traditional display, it's kind of holding its own around 12%. When they think mobile and video, we see a lot of consumer use going there, but those are very tiny ad units. You can't do a lot of creativity. They're not actually that engaging relative to big ass connected smart TVs. So the ad spend, we say consumer media use, ad spend will follow that. We don't see that happening so far. And as we project from 2020 into 2024, we see the amount of ad spend on a proportionate basis. Absolutely, the dollars are rising, but on a relative basis, actually decreasing. So mobile video ad spend as a percentage of the pie, albeit a growing pie, is going to decrease from 4.6% of mobile ad spend to 3.8%. Could be wrong. In 6 months, this will be wrong, and our new one will be right. But this is what we're seeing now. So just to put things in perspective, when we deal with the buy side of the marketplace, search and social are huge for their mobile budgets. When it comes to video, that's kind of what we're seeing them talking about and planning out into the future. So just want to share that perspective.
I want to change it. No, we won't be wrong. It'll be updated data. In terms of the entire video market.
Was that a joke or are you still?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I got a laugh. In terms of the over the air going out, we obviously haven't projected out all this through 2030 as we did for NextGen TV, but you can see that local television stations still garner the largest percentage, and obviously when you pick even number years, that percentage is significant, and so even though it's decreasing, it's still very significant. And this is the real eye chart graph, where you can see the actual dollar amount. And as I mentioned, we included this last year of the locally targeted over-the-top advertisement, and we see that is still relatively small to local television stations, but it is growing at a pretty fast rate. And as Rick pointed out, that local mobile video will be around $2 billion by 2024, increasing from 1.5 billion, a nice percentage, but relative to over-the-air television as well as online video and desktop and out-of-home video, it's small.
One thing about this chart, and this is a scenario we're presenting here, but going back to that theme of robustness, 5G video is basically nowhere. It's made up. Broadcaster video is huge, and it's going to remain huge. So that blue bar on the bottom, I mean, that's a really robust business model. And so doing incremental audience development to get into those other categories of mobile video, from a business perspective, it's a very robust business model, to play on that word. And it's also efficient. If you're an advertiser and you want to reach video people, I'll come back to content in a couple of slides, but the content basically is everywhere. So if you want to engage those consumers that you have already with your content on your broadcast platform into a new platform like mobile, that's a pretty efficient way to reach those people from an advertiser perspective. So broadcast TV going into this new world over the next 5-10 years has a lot of organic advantages in the advertising marketplace with the platform it has. ATSC 1.0, the new capabilities of the platform 3.0, and particularly when you add in hybrid capabilities, we have to be constrained to what we're seeing now and what we're hearing now. But my expectation is in a couple of years out from now, this pie chart, the previous pie charts in this bar chart might change significantly depending upon the way the business people act on the platforms you're building. Speaking of which, two of the key value adds in the video marketplace, particularly now, and this is coming mostly from MVPD, but it raises the bar for over-the-air TV, for NextGen TV, both over-the-air as well as hybrid. Addressability and attribution are two key things that are just happening. They're happening things right now, generally in the marketplace, and it comes from digital. Advertisers buy in digital, they see the clicks, they see the page views, they see the form fills. Now they can get location intelligence, mapping your location, spewing data capabilities of mobile devices to see you saw the car ad on TV and then you went to the dealer lot, so you get some attribution there. So a couple thoughts on addressability and attribution. And I'll stand it all the way here. So trying to put this somewhat in context, if you're trying as an advertiser to engage consumers with the most engaging medium, video, you have a few kind of platforms you can do that with now. And I'll go in different directions here. Starting at the far right, MVPD, multi-video program distributor, cable systems, what can they do? Well, this is basically the things that advertisers care about. You can make a different list or rearrange it, but basically these are things that advertisers care about. They want to get to everybody. They want to have access to the full market. They want premium video, not dancing cats on YouTube. They would like to be interactive and personalized. They like it to be addressable, get to the person with the right message at the right time and so on. Dynamic ad insertion, I would like to get the right creative asset to the right person. Mobile, yep, follow them where they are. I want to have attribution. I had an ad, what happened? I like to be able to track that. I like to be able to match my first party data to your audience data. I would like to respect privacy, especially if I'm in California these days, but that's going to spread throughout the US. I like it to be brand safe. I don't want to have my ad appear in some random evil place in a digital platform. The premium video, the brand safe things that broadcasters offer, huge. And so much of digital ad trafficking, inventory selling is fraud. So, wow, in the world of digital, where we say most of the spend is going and going to continue going even more so in the future, there's some serious concerns, fraud, brand safe, privacy, the ability to do first-party data that are pretty tough for digital to overcome. These other platforms bring video, bring premium video, and solve a lot of these things. So cable's first into this world, particularly with addressability and attribution in a video marketplace. And of all these things here, you can argue, but they get a couple of X's, but a lot of check marks. So a lot of money starting to flow into cable because it can deliver these benefits for advertisers. Then we have over the top, connected TV, virtual MVPDs, the skinny bundles like Hulu Live or YouTube TV. Yeah, it can do a little bit better than cable. It fills in a couple of the blanks with some check marks, but it also misses some things. When you go digital, you start to get into trouble down here somewhere. Then we have local TV, full market reach. Yeah, I mean, nobody else can do that until we get to the second column. Premium video, yep. So a lot of these things are pretty cool, but then the core stuff of what's driving future spending in advertising, not there, not there, not there, not there, not there. So video on TV platforms, broadcast TV platform is huge. Mark just went through the numbers that it attracts, especially in political. It attracts a ton of money in political because it's so engaging, gets that full market reach. So linear over-the-air broadcast video has really established a major, major role in the advertising ecosystem. The stuff it can't do is what it needs to be able to do moving forward. What we've been hearing about today, and what we're going to hear about the rest of today, is we got to turn these things into check marks. And that's what you're going to be doing. And to the extent that that happens, and there's a timeline that the advertising side sees, understands, is able to act on, and the systems, the transactional systems, doing cross-platform video planning and buying from their side, and doing revenue optimization, yield maximization, inventory management, things like that. So once you get into NextGen TV, that's a platform that has a whole bunch of things that need to come together. Once that happens, and yeah, my little weasel word over here, at maturity. So we need to get to at least 50% to be interesting to advertising. So I'd call that at maturity. Like, I mean, to me, this is the promise of this platform you guys are designing and rolling out into the marketplace. It hits all the high points. Yeah, this is one of those eye candy charts. So there's platforms and services. This is the thing I was saying when I get to content. I'll tease a little bit about content. Content is no longer king. It's platforms and devices drive the business model more than content. Is there any piece of content you can't get anywhere, anytime, anything, anywho? Everybody that owns content has made it almost impossible to avoid that content. Disney Plus, Disney Channel, Disney theme parks. You can't escape the content. So content is associated with a lot of value creation, absolutely. But it's hard to believe in the marketplace today and the marketplace we're heading to that it makes sense to think about content as king. It's who owns the box, who owns the platform. Roku doesn't generate any content and makes a ton of money. The stock market loves it. It's just a device and a platform. That's what creates all the value for them. Incremental value, growth in the marketplace. People that produce content still do and will continue to make a ton of money. But for incremental growth, there's platforms and devices that drive business model more so than content, because content is going to be everywhere. How does it get everywhere? That's where the incremental value gets created. So there's a bunch of things here I'll just kind of highlight. Geo-targeting. Advertisers are very interested in the ability to geo-target. Dallas-Fort Worth, they want to send pickup truck, I'll be horribly stereotypical, they want to send pickup truck car ads to Fort Worth. They want to send Lexus ads to Dallas. It's worth a lot for advertisers to do that. They want to be able to dynamically do ad insertion. Yeah. That's a crazy thought that the political people love. They would love to be able to do that. And
cable's able to do that now. So far.
Yeah, I mean, cable does that, makes a lot of money off it. And then here in this town in DC, I live in Maryland, Mark lives in Virginia. You love to watch our Maryland political ads, right?
So, are there competitive political campaigns in Maryland?
Well, there's some window dressing there. But I mean, absolutely. So political is a key case. And then we did organize a session for NAB where we had the agency that handles Coke saying, yeah, we would love to geo-target. So it's like, geo-targeting, does that make sense for a major brand like Coke? Everybody, who here drinks Coke? Just kidding. So, I mean, a major brand, do you really need to geo-target and personalize that? Absolutely, they're very, very interested in geo-targeting for creative versioning, dynamic ad insertion. You may see one Coke ad, I may see another one. So that's the kind of stuff that's very interesting. These devices, there's a whole bunch of technology some of you may or may not be familiar with about the advertising side of things. Ad caching, decisioning systems, all of that is stuff that lives on top of your NextGen platform, higher up in the architectural layers, application layers. This stuff is all critical. Decisioning engines, inventory management, and audience measurement. NextGen TV has the ability with the back channel of some sort to get into audience measurement. That ties into attribution and targeting, all really critical things. So there's this whole ecosystem. Probably nobody can see this, but the most interesting thing is you'll see 1.0 to 3.0. Once you get here, especially with that hybrid thing, these are the kind of charts that are starting to percolate into the business and strategy side out of the tech community. It's like, when we think about business models, it's really cool to see people start to include 3.0, saying, yeah, we may know what this is, we may not. Typically they don't, they need more education from the broadcast side of things. But they're saying digital OTA delivery and as the option, internet delivery with ATSC 3.0. It's just so cool to see these charts start to pop up. It's some of the business and strategy things saying, this is why more money eventually may move from digital into broadcast and hybrid broadcast. Our forecast isn't fully reflecting that yet, but these are kind of formative, plate tectonic kind of things that once they start to move, I think could move really quickly. Still my turn. Okay, so NextGen and attribution. The attribution is a big thing. What does that mean? Basically, I do an ad, what happens? I want to drive a sales response. I visited the lot, I changed my mind. Now I like Ford better than Toyota because I saw a TV ad or a bunch of TV ads. So how do you do that? Well, you have to tag the content somehow. You have to have program tags, watermarks, audio, video watermarks, or some sort of system. Same thing for the ads. There's a few companies that do that, Kantar, Nielsen, Verance, and there's some cross-industry initiatives that try to do this. So somehow tagging the content, critical for attribution, getting some measure of the audience that people believe. ComScore, Nielsen, Yada Labs is working in the Phoenix model market. Some notion of audience, some notion of what the content, tie those two together, and then match that either online or offline with digital KPIs like site search, traffic, Closed loop, much harder to do. We're combating companies like Amazon. They'll show you a display ad. They can track your online behavior. That was an interesting ad. I click on it, I call it up, and I buy 2 of them. Amazon, in that closed loop marketing case, they have perfect data. How often do they have that? Not always, but when an advertiser sees perfect attribution data, it's like, with great certainty, I can advertise there and see what happens. Data matching rates I spoke to, that's an issue. And then privacy, the GDPR that's supposed to be, and CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, those are things that we need to think about. And I'll call out NAB. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with Pilot to look at what does data mean in the NextGen TV world, or way back when we did this report, a year ago, whenever it was still ATSC 3.0. So we worked with the NAB folks and said, let's think about that. What's kind of the data vision for NextGen TV? So we had the chance to work together and came up with a bunch of different business models about what data could do as business opportunities for broadcasters. First-party data, analytics and insights, addressability and attribution that I was just talking about, content distribution network, wireless networks, whatever, and then alerts and warnings. So in that report, which is available from the Pilot site, check it out. There's a slide deck version for those of you who like a quick click through of something, and a longer report that goes into more depth.
As you can see, we're somewhat bullish about NextGen television insofar as that we think it really does have great potential. Rick went into detail about the attribution and addressability of advertising. And it's going to take a while, and as all of you know that. So even when you get through the Roaring 20 to NextGen television, still most of the advertisement, maybe 50, 60, 70%, will still be with the what I'll call traditional linear television advertising revenues. Online video and mobile video is important. As Rick showed, it's a small slight, but it is increasing. If we're bullish about NextGen, not only because it's opportunities for local TV to get into the digital addressable advertising, but it also, I think, brings back a lot of excitement to local television stations insofar as bringing some luster into it. And I'll let you explain the new oil on that now.
Oh yes, I wanted to have some fun. So data is a terrific opportunity, referred to the previous slide and a lot of the work that you guys have been doing. So if data is the new oil, local TV operators might be forgiven for mistaking their towers for oil rigs. Didn't go as well as I hoped.
You were much funnier at the earlier. Maybe they're getting tired.
So NextGen TV, plus data, high value, high impact business models. We see the possibilities, the ingredients for just about execution and kind of what the strategy and business people at your companies do. To take that premium video to target audiences. So there's advertising outcomes, there's data outcomes, there's alert warning outcomes. There's a lot promising, some of which we reflect in our revenue forecast, and some of which is kind of on a non-revenue side. So with that, I'll thank you again for your time. So if you have questions, and then Peter, see you again in 20 years.
So we'll have to save questions.